All right, welcome everyone. In this explainer, we're going to take a deep dive into the incredible journey of Michigan, the Great Lakes state.
So here's the big question, right? How did this huge wilderness, carved out by glaciers and surrounded by water, turn into the industrial giant that literally put the world on wheels? We're going to explore exactly that. How its unique geography, its amazing resources, and wave after wave of people created a state with a story you just won't find anywhere else. Okay, so to really understand Michigan, we have to go way, way back. Long before any European maps were even a thought, this land was home to its first inhabitants for thousands of years. And these weren't simple societies. They were complex cultures that adapted to this incredible landscape and really set the stage for everything that followed. I mean, just look at this timeline. The scale of time here is just mind-boggling. We're talking 11,000 BCE. That's Paleo-Indians hunting in a landscape fresh from the Ice Age. And then you get something like the Old Copper Complex. People were crafting tools from pure copper here thousands of years before the Bronze Age even started in Europe. It's just incredible. And all of this deep, ancient history finally bumps into the wider world around 1620 when French explorers show up, looking for a shortcut to Asia, but instead they stumble upon Michigan and kick off a whole new chapter. So when those Europeans did arrive, this land was anything but empty. The whole Great Lakes region was dominated by this powerful confederacy, the Three Council Fires. Think of them as the major political and military force. They controlled everything, trade, diplomacy, you name it. So for the French to succeed, they couldn't just walk in and take over. No way. They had to navigate this complex political world and build alliances, mostly centered around one thing, the super lucrative fur trade. All right, so let's jump forward a bit. The next phase of Michigan's story is all about power shifts. The land gets passed from one empire to another, it's fought over, but what's really fascinating is how it's ultimately shaped by this kind of weird border dispute, a dispute that ended up having a huge, and I mean huge, payoff. For a long time, Michigan was just this remote outpost on the frontier. First French, then British, then finally American. But the real game changer, the event that completely transformed it, that was the opening of the Erie Canal in 1825. All of a sudden, you had this super highway of water connecting the East Coast directly to the Great Lakes. It was cheap, it was easy, and boom, the floodgates just burst open. And this quote really says it all. It seemed as if all New England were coming. This wasn't just a trickle of people. It was a flood of Yankee settlers from New England and New York. And they brought their whole culture with them. A big focus on public schools, a strong work ethic, and, really crucially, a powerful anti-slavery stance. This influx completely shaped Michigan's early politics, turning it into a hotbed for the brand new Republican Party and making it a vital final stop on the Underground Railroad. So you'd think with all these people pouring in, statehood would be a slam dunk, right? Well, not so fast. The whole thing almost got derailed by something called the Toledo War, which was basically a stare-down with Ohio over a strip of land. Congress had to step in and play mediator. The deal was this: Ohio gets Toledo and Michigan gets the western Upper Peninsula as kind of a consolation prize. And at the time, everyone in Michigan was furious. They thought they got stuck with a worthless swamp. Turns out, it was probably one of the greatest deals in American history. And why was it such a great deal? Because that consolation prize paid off, and big time. The Upper Peninsula wasn't a swamp at all. It was an absolute treasure chest packed with natural resources. And those resources would fuel Michigan's first big industrial booms, setting the stage perfectly for the one that was going to change everything. We're talking about some of the richest copper and iron deposits on the entire planet just sitting there in the UP. But how do you get it out? Well, that's where the Sulaks come in. Built in 1855, this was a total marvel of engineering that basically created a water elevator between Lake Superior and the other Great Lakes. You combine that with a massive logging industry that was clearing these huge white pine forests, and suddenly, Michigan is a national industrial powerhouse. And this is all before anyone's even thinking about cars. So you see how it all connects? You've got the money, the factories, the know-how, and the shipping routes, all thanks to mining and logging. It created the absolute perfect environment for the automobile to be born. And man, did it happen fast. In just about a decade, you have guys like Ransom Olds, Henry Ford, and William Durant. These pioneers didn't just start car companies, they launched a full-blown revolution that turned Detroit into the auto capital of the entire world. No question about it. But here's the thing about putting all your eggs in one basket. Michigan's complete reliance on the auto industry, it was a double-edged sword.
When times were good, they were incredible. But when they were bad, they were absolutely devastating. And that roller coaster of boom and bust led to some of the most intense moments in American labor history, and also one of its most heroic wartime efforts. So when the Great Depression hits, it hits Michigan harder than almost anywhere else. The entire national economy tanks, and the auto industry just slams on the brakes. For Michigan, it was a catastrophe. The assembly lines went silent overnight, the hardship was just immense, and it really forced a massive change in the state's politics and society.
But out of that desperation, something new and powerful was born. The Flint sit-down strike of 36 and 37. This was a total game changer. Workers didn't just walk out, they sat down inside the GM plants and refused to leave for more than 40 days. And it worked. Their victory forced General Motors to recognize the UAW, the United Auto Workers. And look at that number. The union went from 30,000 members to 500,000 in just 1 year. That one event legitimized the entire union movement and created a political and economic force that would shape Michigan for the rest of the century.
Then, just a few short years later, World War II breaks out. And those same factories that were silent during the Depression, they roared back to life. In an incredible transformation, they switched from making cars to churning out bombers, tanks, and engines for the war. Michigan's industrial power became absolutely essential to the Allied victory, earning it the nickname President Roosevelt gave it, the Arsenal of Democracy.
Okay, so after the war, Michigan rides this wave of incredible prosperity. But with that success came a whole new set of challenges. The state found itself right at the heart of massive social changes, amazing cultural innovation, and eventually, the really painful process of its main industry having to completely reinvent itself. And you can really see the highs and lows in this period. On one hand, you've got amazing achievements like the Mackinac Bridge, the Mighty Mac, finally linking the two peninsulas. And of course, Motown Records starts up in Detroit, creating a sound that took over the entire world. But that prosperity wasn't for everyone. The 1967 Detroit riot laid bare these really deep racial tensions. And then the oil crisis in '73 sent a shockwave through the auto industry. That was really the start of a long, tough economic slide that forced Michigan to, once again, figure out what's next.
So when you look at it all, from the copper mines way up in the UP, to the Detroit assembly lines, to the sound of Motown, the story of Michigan is really a story of constant change and adaptation. It's always reinventing itself. And as the state works to build a new kind of economy for the 21st century, that history of resilience, of always finding a way forward, is a pretty powerful foundation to build on. So the big question is, what will its next chapter look like?
Hey, if you found this history of Michigan interesting, we've got a whole playlist of U.S. state histories you should definitely check out. And of course, make sure you subscribe to Notebook Summary so you don't miss the next explainer we put out. Thanks so much for watching.